back to Beyond the Rings, Paris 24 Outreach, 30 short stories in 30 days. My name's Jeff Wells. I have the great privilege of being the founder, being a part of taking the gospel to the Olympics for 11 Olympics now, 6 summer, 5 winter. And I'm joined once again by my good friend, Josh Reed, brother in Christ, dear friend, Triple Play podcast. Guru. This is the Triple Play studio that he makes available to us, and I'm grateful for all the way you help Beyond the Rings and me, my friend. You have been such an integral part of this year. Thank you, brother.
Hey, my pleasure. And so this is our last 30 and 30.
It is number
Very,
30.
very fun. And so here's what I got to ask you. Paris, what is the one thing that stood out and you go, this is about Paris? And then we're going to pivot because I want you to tell us about the future. Now, real quickly, too, right at the very beginning, how many summers have you been?
6 summers now.
And how many winters?
5.
So what that means is we got to send you in 2 years so we can make it 6 and 6.
Yes, that's right.
6 summer, 6 winter.
That's right. Yeah, we got to even it up. It's uneven right now. Yeah. I was stuck at 10 forever because of the pandemic. So summer of 2000 was my first summer. 2002 was my first winter, and I've done every one of them up until Tokyo 2020 and Beijing 2022. And because of the pandemic, they were only letting athletes and coaches come in very limited press. And so it would have been number 13. But no, it's only number 11. But you're right. Italy 2026, Milan Cortina, February of 26, which most people don't think about this. It's the shortest distance between summer and winter games. So even though it's 2026, you think, well, that's 2 years away. But it happens, the summer games happen in the middle of the year. The winter games happen at the beginning of the year. So there's only like 550 some odd days until the winter games.
All right. So in that, let's close out the Paris.
Yes.
What was the coolest thing about Paris to you?
I hate to say this, but the stinking Eiffel Tower. It's just so dominant throughout the city. And here's why I hate to say that. It is the stereotypical
Touristy
answer. But literally everywhere you go in the city, you can see that tower. And it has such prominence and such rich history because, it was built for the World's Fair. And it was there during the last time they hosted the Olympics in Paris in 1924. And so it has a lot of history. And it is incredible structure. We were, all around it throughout the week, the 3 weeks we were there. Destiny, who was on our team, she turned 20 on August 11th, the last day, the day of the closing ceremony. So Brandon and Destiny are a couple, and he wanted to surprise her. And so he got tickets a month and a half before we went. We'd arranged it. I knew he was going to do it. And so all 3 of us, Tony had already gone back to Mississippi. We went up into the Eiffel Tower, up to the top on her birthday on August 11th. And so it was pretty cool. And I'm a guy who is afraid of heights. Like if I go up in the arch here in St. Louis, I'll go up, I'll get out, I'll walk across, I'll look out the window, and I'll go over to the other side and I'll go back down. I just don't want to hang around. And so, the Eiffel Tower, you're outside, and so you go up inside a kind of a big elevator that held about 40 people. I think it was about 28 people too many, but, that's just me. But you get out and you're like kind of on one level and you can kind of walk around outside. And it's all, there's essentially chicken wire. So I felt pretty safe, but you're still outside way up there. And it's like, I can't remember how, it's much higher than the St. Louis Arch. And, but then you get into a much smaller elevator and you go to the very, very tippy top. And we did that too because we're insane. And you get out there again. And, but like with the arch, it's like it sways and stuff like that. The Eiffel Tower doesn't move. That thing is solid. And when you're standing underneath it and you look up underneath, that was what really impressed me with going in, because you got to cross underneath it to go to where you catch the elevator going up. And you look up at the middle of it, it's just solid. It's such an impressive piece of architecture, And so it was neat to always see it there, always be in the background. It was such an identifiable thing about Paris. And then to be able to go up in it was really a neat experience. Now, I will share a second
Real quickly though,
Yes.
did that give you direction too when you're looking? You ever had to kind of find something? You can see where the Eiffel Tower was, and it
Yeah,
kind of
but
gave you an
I'm
idea.
horrible with directions, so it
Okay.
wouldn't help me. I relied on the app. I'm like, "Yeah, there I don't care. I gotta go here." The other c well, there were 2 other things that were uniquely cool about, Paris was the way they did the flame. It's always a big deal. How are they gonna do the flame? And they always kinda keep it secret. And the way Paris did it with this balloon was such a creative thing because, air balloon hot air balloon apparently was invented or in Paris or something like very tied to Paris. So with them having the cauldron tied at the bottom of this big balloon was just beautiful, and the way they raised it up on the opening ceremony. But then we thought we got online that night. We're like, you got to get tickets, even though they were free. You had to get tickets to get in line, to get up close to it, to get pictures, and like let's see if we can do that. Well, within an hour, they were all gone. We're like, man, that
Wow.
stinks. Nobody's gonna be able. Well, then we didn't know for a couple of days, but every night they would during the day, they would keep it on the ground, and then at night, they would raise it. It was tethered. They would raise it back up again, and so once we discovered that, we stayed out late one night, late after dark, and we went over, it was near the Louvre, and got to see it, in the sky and took a couple pic that was really cool to see that, and then the final thing was probably the most French thing I did while I was there. A kind, BTR, supporter, messaged me and been watching the updates and everything. And she's like, "I want to treat you and the team to a nice French meal. So here's your budget. Go get something nice and memorable and enjoy." And it was the end of the week and the end of the trip, and we're just kind of tired. And we're like, let's not overthink this. The hotel we were in was a top of a very nice restaurant. It was bigger than a typical Parisian cafe. We'd gotten to know the staff really well, and I'm like, let's just go down there and order the most expensive thing on the menu, and that's what we did. But to kick it off for appetizers, Brandon and I had snails. We had escargot, and it wasn't as weird and as slimy and yucky as I thought it would be. And we filmed each other eating it, and so that was a lot of fun. We could not bribe, threaten, or in any other way convince, Destiny to even try it. She was not going
I would not have tried that. That snails have no appeal to me. But
there.
so let's pivot now and move towards less than a year and a half from now.
Yeah,
Milan.
yeah, Milan Cortina. The first time, a city is shared it's not a single city, it's Milan Cortina. So, really, when you look at their plans, as best as I understand them right now, as I've just begun to research, Milan's a pretty big city, like 5 million people, and Cortina is, I don't know how big it is, but it's substantially smaller than Milan. But at the end of the day, that's kinda how it often works. Like in Salt Lake in 2002, Salt Lake was the it was Salt Lake 2002, but Park City without Park City, you wouldn't have Salt Lake 2 because it was where all the ski events were, right?
Right.
And so, essentially what they've done with Milan and Cortina is said, "We're not just gonna call it Milan, we're gonna identify the other." Well, the fact is there's 4 major cities in Italy that are gonna be hosting events. Milan will have basically, the opening ceremony and all the indoor events, like hockey, things like, skating and things like that. Cortina will have the closing ceremony, which is interesting, I think, and I don't even know what events over there, but then there's 2 other areas that are gonna have some of the other events, and so, um, it's the first time it's gonna be that spread out. Well, I won't say the first time, because if you remember in Paris, where we're surfing, do you remember? Tahiti,
Oh,
because it's a French
Colony.
colony or whatever, yeah, and so surfing was in Tahiti, and so it's not unusual, it's just odd. It's like right now, LA has already tagged, LA 28 has already tagged Oklahoma City for all the softball and baseball games. Oklahoma City for LA 28 games. And so again, it's part of the whole sustainability thing. They don't want to build anything new. And so we're going to go to wherever anywhere is that can host them. Again, as we talked about in the previous episode, it takes away from, it dilutes the Olympic spirit. And so, our hope and prayer and what we're planning on and praying for right now is to make a preliminary trip in February of 2025 in just a few months. Because February 6th of 2025 will be the 365 days to go. It's February 6th, 2026 is opening ceremony. And so that's the year out is when they really begin to get excited. They really begin to promote. Oftentimes, it's when ticket sales become available, first open up. And for us, teams like us that are going into to these cities, it's often you got to be within a year before you can talk to housing um, providers that we even make a contract. And so, fortunately for Milan, through Tony, he's in Gulfport, Mississippi, and one of the pastors at his church has some really strong connections with some churches and church planters in Milan. So we're hoping to have some more church connections and some maybe even some Italian partners in the gospel for when we're out sharing, as well as plugging in those in the Milan area back into those churches. So because of all that, we're probably going to focus primarily just in Milan during the Olympic Games, unless we get, you know, a line or a possibility on tickets. Because my understanding is between Milan and Cortina is 2 to 3 hours, and the other two cities are like 3 to 4 hours away from Milan, and that's just a lot of travel time. Or you begin to look at, well, what about the logistics of being in having two different teams? This is just our second Olympics. We're going to still be a pretty small team. We're not at a place where we could sustain that kind of two team approach. Um, but that may very well be something we have to build up to in the future, because if they do more and more of this to be more impactful, we may have to have. But like we even talked about, I've already begun having conversations about, well, maybe for LA we have an Oklahoma team, an Oklahoma City team. And when you look at how strong the evangelical church is, Oklahoma, you might be able to sustain that, because you could train, you could equip, you could have even a previous BTR team member like Brandon. You stay in Oklahoma, I'll be in LA, and so that may be a little bit more sustainable than we will be prepared to do have in Milan.
Well, that's awesome.
Yeah,
So, so Milan is just around the corner. You're
yeah,
already making preparations. We're gonna close the chapter of this book on Paris, and with fond memories
yeah,
of the Eiffel Tower
yeah.
and eating some snails.
Yes, that's right. That's right. Yeah.
I
Well,
can't wait to hear what you try in Milan.
yeah, right. Well, and to that point, when we were in um, Turin, Italy, or Torino. That's the birthplace of the espressos. And I'm not a coffee drinker, but I did have an espresso because when in Turin. But when in Milan, I don't know. It's a good point. I guess you'll have
You
to
have to
tune
research that.
and you'll have to tune in to find out what that looks like. Hey, thanks again, guys, for joining us today. I want to make sure to invite one last time to join us for the Paris 24 Outreach Celebration, September 29th, 3 p.m. at Concord Church.
Where at?
Concord Church out in South St. Louis County, concordchurch.com.
There we go.
But you can always go to beyondtherings.net and see all the stuff from Paris 24 and all the previous Olympics, as well as the upcoming Olympic outreach opportunities. But on the 29th, we're going to be serving desserts, drinks. The ground team is going to be sharing stories, pictures, videos, pins from previous Olympics. And then we're going to wrap up the night with kicking off officially the Milan 26, and we'll have the new pin design. We'll have the pin design that we will be using for Milan. We'll introduce that design that night. Yeah.
That's really cool. So you'll have the pin design, and for those that don't know, Concord Church has played a very pivotal to your ability to do Beyond the Rings. They've been a big
Absolutely.
supporter, both financially, both allowing you to have time for that.
Hmm.
So I think it's only appropriate that we say a shout out to Concord Church. If you're looking for a good church in South County
Yeah.
and you want to see this guy around there,
That may
check it
be
out.
a detriment to them coming. I don't know, but no, it is a great church. I'm very fortunate to be a part of their pastoral team. Great people, love the Lord, love seeing people hear about Jesus, and they've been just tremendous supporters, and I'm very grateful for them. Thank you for that shout out. Appreciate it.
Well, hey, we hope to see you at Concord Church celebrating what God just did in Paris. and praying because seeds were sown,
Yes,
some seeds were watered, but it's the Lord that makes them grow. So
absolutely.
we keep praying for fruit to come out of that season of those days in Paris and those hearts that were reached and maybe heard the gospel for the first time. And you can start even now also starting to pray towards Milan
Mhm.
that God would do a mighty work, that God would protect the team that's going to be going, being with their families while they're away,
Yeah.
and pray that God put a hedge around them as well, and that God would be glorified and lifted up. Because in a time that sometimes we feel like God's nowhere to be found.
Mm.
Oh, God is everywhere. You just gotta look sometimes. Sometimes you gotta pick up like it kinda reminds me the other day, and I'm gonna leave with this story. I went in the backyard, I was cleaning up, and my kids had unhooked our hammocks and put them to the side, and I had to mess with it for several weeks. I go to move a hammock, and there had been one of my kids that loved some food in there, and that thing moved, and I tell you, before I could even realize what was going on, I had ants all over my
Oh,
body,
man.
okay? The point of that is all you had to do is pull over the rock in essence, and everything was there. Well, sometimes we can look around and go, "Where's the gospel?" And I'm sure sometimes people back in the biblical days did the same thing.
Yeah.
But guess what? It was thriving. That's why James wrote that book and said to the scattered believers.
Yeah,
They were still out
absolutely.
there. They were just scattered at the time.
Yep,
Hey,
yep.
they're scattered believers even in Milan, even in Paris.
Yeah,
Keep praying for them, and
absolutely.
I hope that we catch you guys at this outreach celebration.
Thanks, Josh. I appreciate you, brother.
All right, 30 and 30 wrapped. We'll catch you guys the next regular episode
That's right.
of Beyond the Rings as we'll start looking towards Milan. God bless, guys.
Till then.